So Susan, cool. And you just want to hold it like this. Yep.
Now I understand why you invited me, Ken, with your subject tonight. So this is a poem that I wrote in May called Tonglen. And it was recently published, and I sent a copy to Ken, and he invited me this evening to read it. So Tonglen literally means taking and sending in Tibetan, or accepting and sending out. A practice of breathing in life to transform it deep within the heart, then breathe it out, changed. A sort of alchemy travels through the body, often not felt or seen, as it shifts from neuron to neuron, from one state of being to another, all by the breath, in and out, thousands of times, until breath calls itself grace and medicine born from harm. A healing gold for the spirit rises from the depths of the body, open to change by the in and out music, with eyes closed or open, body still and silent, for only moments, allowing the wonder of it into the world. A salve for the wounds of grief and sorrow. Thank you.
So by now, I'm sure if you didn't have it before, because I know some of us have been studying this before, um, you get, I suspect you're getting how this practice really opens us up, turns us inside out. And so the whole point is really to open ourselves to the pulse, to the flow, to the space that comes and goes, the air that comes in and out, the emotions that come in and out, ideas, and so forth. And to rest in the space, the essence, bodhicitta, that allows for things to fall apart. And then, of course, they get back together and then they fall apart again. That's how it goes here in this on this plane in the samsara world. So tuning in to the spaciousness that allows for the coming and going, the holding on and letting go, and which is quintessentially relaxation, non-distracted, of letting things be as they are, as they rise and fall, come and go, agitate and release. So that's the point. But and in order to facilitate that, these relative practices, these points, there's all these slogans, but there's really these 7 points in this Lojong training. They're really mainly about kneecapping the ego. That's the point, is to expedite our opening by not only allowing, but going into being broken open, allowing ourselves to be broken open, which life will do to us in any case. But of course, we keep resisting that. So I'm going to leave. I want to leave plenty of time for us to talk among ourselves. But I wanted to revisit what we were talking about a little last week in terms of this point 3 of 7, which is all about transforming negativities, bad situations into the path. One of the slogans is, when the world is filled with evil, transform mishaps into the path of Bodhi. So the difficulties that we encounter are can be allies. This practice is so counterintuitive because it sees this as boons. When we have difficulties, different painful situations or whatnot happen, this, whether we want it or not, this gets to us. We get, as we say, he gets under my skin. We say things like that reveal we've been touched, and not often not in a nice way, by the world. And so this transformation is we turn that pain into awakeness, non-reactive. And in order to expedite that, we go towards it. This is very different from Vipassana style. It's also very different from something like Mahamudra Dzogchen, where you don't go toward or away from anything. In this practice, it's different. This practice is steeper, more aggressive in the sense that we open to the hard stuff. And by taking it on, what we want to get rid of, by taking it on, we strengthen our own capacity for dealing with difficult situations. So obviously, this is not for the faint of heart, this path. So this slogan we touched on last time, which a number of us have problems with, drive all blames into one, meaning me. I was at the Dharma talk that John and the new teacher, Adam, did Monday. And it reminded me of something, the experience of the Dalai Lama, when the Westerners were trying to explain self-hatred. He didn't get it. And I think when we apply these teachings, particularly this slogan, but others as well, we need to take that into account. Times have changed. In old Tibet, and even more modern Tibet, this notion of self-criticism, this hyper self-consciousness we have that leans into self-judgment and self-criticism, even self-hatred, totally normal. Say super ego attacks. This is unique for us. It wasn't earlier in Tibet where these teachings came from. So drive all blames into one. They didn't have the vulnerability, the fragility of ego that we have in terms of turning of self-blame and self-hatred. So I think we have to take that into account. And so rather than driving all blames into ourselves, maybe we should think more in terms of not blaming others. Maybe that would be a better emphasis for us to have that, because it really gets to kind of the same place. That we're not going to judge, we're not going to blame others. And then we're going to have this, but I think we do have to have this ethic, though. That is, there's a problem between us. And if somebody has to change, let it be me. That, I think, is fair. And that's hard enough. Humiliating. We're in an argument, they have their point of view, we have our point of view, we're arguing our point, and then we let them win. We let them have the victory. Let them have the last word. And this is important. We take the pain of that defeat. If we just kind of have it as a kind of like an intellectual exercise, and maybe we're really doing a good thing, and this comes out in the other slogans, that there's a way you can take credit for being, good at Tonglen, of taking the blame. But we have to really feel the defeat. Take it in, and then exhale. Let it go. So the shift here is between having a position, trying to be right in particular in this case, but we could also inflict damage on ourselves by being wrong. And the point here isn't to make ourselves wrong or bad, but to shift from ego to the spaciousness of awareness, beyond blame. Like the line of Rumi's, there's a field beyond right doing and wrong doing. I'll meet you there. I think that is more practical for us, because it's not so hard to make ourselves into a big deal in being a bad person, in being wrong, in being guilty. In our culture, it's really easy to do that. I mean, we have this Judeo, in particular Christian legacy, that just sets us up for that. And those of us who have been raised Catholic have a especially stout dose. So we don't, so it's tricky. It's tricky territory. But what's nice also in the way the progression of these slogans is, after that one comes, be grateful to everybody. We could really expand that, say, be grateful for everything. The bad stuff, the hard stuff, the difficult people, because they throw us back on ourselves. Difficult situation will stop our 24/7 self-talk. It interrupts it. So we can have gratitude that we've been stopped and we're thrown back on ourselves and have to pause. So the gratitude is the Lojong, the ability to pause is mindfulness. Without, as we've talked before, that foundation is absolutely mission critical for doing this practice, for having it work. So that we can let things be as they are, impermanent, without grasping. Or in this practice, if there's grasping, it's always about letting go. Usually, and since we're usually interested in making a case for ourselves against others, so many of these slogans just, aim at the ego to crack it open. And Trungpa is so deft, I think, in talking about these particular slogans as fertilizing this paramita of generosity, that when we give to others, even if they don't particularly deserve it, but we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt anyway, we're going to give them a second chance, we're going to let them win. At that point, we begin tapping a resourcefulness within ourselves. Beyond holding on, this, and he's really astute on this, this is the womb of generosity. Not holding on is already generosity. This paramita. I think that's a very skillful way of thinking about it. Normally we think generosity, giving money or alms or something. But this, not holding a position, a self position, this really goes far deeper. This is way more personal than cutting a check. There's a pain to it, isn't there? We're not in control. We're not winning. And yet, we become larger by that. We have more room, resources, and room to negotiate situations, to manage situations. We don't have to be locked in to this adversarial thing that we're in the world so much, wanting to be right, so on and so forth. So this is all in the element of point 3. There's also point 4, which takes it another step, and it's something I would say like, don't feed your depression, don't feed your indifference. This is the paramita of diligence, where you're going to show up, where you're going to work the program in the towards becoming a dharmic person rather than a worldly person. And as he and many of us have rightly observed, it's really rare in this world to have people who are really dharmic people, where the most important thing isn't your own well-being or your family's well-being or your job or any of that, but it's your awakening is number one. That's what a dharmic person is. When you put your own awakening as number one, but awakening in this humbling sense makes it legit. Awakening that I'm going to become enlightened. No, I am going to be brought to my knees. That's what this accelerates. That humbling of ego, that opening of the heart. So we say awakening, it sounds all bright and light, but really, the process of it is kind of devastating, because we are content to lose all the things we want to keep, all the things we want to attain, including letting go of the pursuit at some point, letting go of the pursuit of self enlightenment. This Mahayana path puts the benefit, the enlightenment of others ahead of ours. And in doing that, in working this program, I found that it really is an expediter the way that the ego will insinuate itself onto the spiritual path and kind of track itself. How long do I sit? How am I doing? How much do I know? There's all of this kind of thing that kind of is spiritual materialism that just goes with the program. It's spiritual bypassing is not a, it's not a mistake. It's part of the path. It comes up. So the Lojong teachings are ways of working with that lean into our own humbling. And as we become less in charge, less the driver, bigger in mind and heart, then we realize there is a more brilliant driver out there, right here. Our own, what is the Christian thing? We small voice inside, that inner guidance system. We get a clear read because we're not so busy talking to ourselves, building ourselves up, or tearing ourselves down. Can get on a shtick about that, right? And so we just be preoccupied with this is the depressive thinking. Oh, I'm not good enough, la la la. That's ego. That's not opening. That's not the Tonglen or the Lojong. So we have to be sharp about this, that if we catch ourselves in a narrative, we might be prepared to like take the blame or be defeated. But if we find ourselves in a narrative, talking to ourselves about it, that's the time to go on full alert. Because now we're building a case about me. It's not a positive case, it's a negative case, but it's still a case about me. So a dharmic person is paying attention to the way we have stories of me. And that's what we exhale, we let that go. Befriending death is another one of these slogans. We can't go into this a whole lot, except to say that the attitude is to welcome whatever happens, to be grateful for whatever happens. So if I'm to be healthy, that's good. If I'm to be ill, that's good. I welcome that. Let it be. Let it be so. If I'm to live a long life, good. If I'm to die younger, good. Let it be that way. I accept that. I'll take it as it comes. All of these, as you read through this book, if you do, you'll notice like they're all kind of echoing the same point over and over again. Don't take the easy way. Really, the Lojong training is about consistently taking the harder way. There will come a time when we have to die, when our body is done or we're in an accident. We don't know when that will be. But we can practice the essence of dying right away in terms of letting go to what we want to hold on to. As has been said, it's been quoted, different people, it's been attributed to various people like Krishnamurti or Socrates, Buddhist, Zen masters. If you die before you die, then when you die, you don't die. Because there's no solid self there to die. You've already died to this ego, this self sense, this identity. So this is all part of the thing here. All dharmas agree on one point. So we're in a different one, like the point 5 here, which is the meditation in action. Is one thing to sit on the cushion, which creates the foundation, it creates the favorable condition to dealing with life on its own terms. All dharmas agree on one point, whether it's the so-called Hinayana or Mahayana or Vajrayana, so many different schools. And that point is that the ego is the problem. And so that's where you'll read in these things, this idea is to crush our propensities for attachment, aversion, and indifference, these kleshas. We don't tolerate them. In this style of practice, we don't tolerate them. We notice as soon as they come up, that's the practice. And then immediately let go. Attachment, let go. Aversion, fear, or hatred. Drop it like a hot coal. That's the kind of slogan that we sort of retrain ourselves to not make a case either for or against or neutral. I don't want to get involved. Doesn't concern me what's happening. That's the third of the three kleshas that we notice right away when that comes up, and we go into alert, wakefulness, open, free fall. Because at that point, we let go of having anything to do, anything physical to do, but also any kind of position to take, mental position. So this is how this path gets to be so direct, that we just drop our position and fall into spaciousness of awareness and be there not knowing what to do. When I was practicing psychotherapy, it was an absolute game changer epiphany for me. When I decided to practice, when I didn't know what to say in an exchange, I didn't present a filler. A lot of therapy can be, on the therapist and the client's end too, can be filler, not core, emerging, spontaneous sharing. So if I didn't know what to say, I wouldn't say anything. And the only rule I made for myself was don't disconnect. Stay totally tuned into whoever I was sitting with in my unknowing. And that was amazing, the effect that had. It just supercharged the therapy, because in that moment of my not knowing but remaining attuned, a certain pressure built, and then something would always happen, because something always does. But it takes some nerve to not have an answer, to not know. And sometimes when I was doing therapy, I would say it, but other times I say it in just relational exchanges now. I don't know what to say. And I'll just leave it there. I'll just drop it. But I won't close my heart. So that's respecting the absolute or essential bodhicitta, not closing heart. So I'll just make one more comment and then well, actually I won't because we're already, I see, going too far. So I'll leave my talking there and then open it up to anybody who wants to chime in. Vivian. You should wait for the mic. Although I think we're offline.
We're, I just have to.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm a little hesitant to bring a question into this space because it's so lovely, but I will. So I had a question when I read, or a kind of lots of questions when I read the slogan 20. And that is, of the two witnesses, hold the principal one. And so I'm just going to read what I wrote down because otherwise I'll get lost. How does this relate to the teacher? I tend to doubt my own experience, particularly possible insight. Not at the moment of insight, but afterwards. But on a retreat, I had a moment of blissful realization of impermanence of just one step. And I decided to share it in the evening discussion. And John, who was teaching the retreat, validated it as insight. And when he did that, my heart just sort of like kind of burst open and tears came. And I was just filled with so much gratitude that it was seen. Hold on a second, I'm kind of shaky. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about this. So the slogan is to hold the principal one, which is yourself. But what about the relationship to a teacher? And then another question, how do we trust our own experience? We are so constantly self-deceptive until free of ego. So how do you hold your own, the principal one, as the knower? And then the next question came up, how do I trust a teacher's validation? When in my long relationship with teachers, I've experienced some difficult relationships there. So that's kind of the whole kit and caboodle that came up with that slogan. Is that clear?
Yeah, rich. So rich. Well, I would just observe that, first of all, you trusted yourself enough to speak up at that time. So you're already trusting whatever, your inner guidance, I would say, your inner compass. And then John was paying attention. So that credit goes to him. He got you. He heard, he saw, he heard, he was open by virtue of his evolution, by virtue of his practice, whatever, his openness. And that then moved you in a way that we would say was deep or authentic, back to in this language, the first witness. So you can trust that. So he said something, but you got it. In a sense, like, if I were to speak for, behind you, I would say, right, John, that's right. I'm not crazy. I have insight too. I'm enough or something. I'm ad-libbing here, right? And it's like all of that is resonant to your truth sense. So that's the other way of putting it here, one's truth sense, being true to one's truth sense. And so, but people can be in harmony. People can have rapport, can be tuned into each other. So in that moment, John was tuned into you, and you were tuned into him. You took in what he said. I mean, you were probably pretty open, right? And so it just washed over you. With teachers, I think that's where this slogan and its sort of in general is most valuable. Not only teachers, also partners, also parents, children, friends, Sangha, brothers and sisters. Listen and then see, does it fit? Does it resonate? And that's the first witness. Whatever anyone says, any teacher also, does it resonate? With John, boy, did it resonate. Ka-chink. So that's what I would say is the gist of that particular slogan. Trust yourself in the sense of, of inner guidance, heart of heart type of thing, truth sense, rather than ego. And sometimes, of course, it can be really hard to distinguish between those two. In which case, relax. Don't force it. Let it ride. Stay tuned in. Let it mature. Let your own tuned inness mature. Are they right? Are they wrong? I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay. Be in the uncertainty. Befriending. Befriending that. If you're befriending uncertainty, you're already very close to this famous emptiness open. Certainly undefended. And then relaxing into the not knowing, this is a very fertile place to be. To then tune into the insubstantiality of everything. Like we can understand impermanence, things change, but we still have an idea that there are things that are changing. And so getting this essence of bodhicitta, the greatest protection, shunyata is the greatest protection, being undefended, but alert and aware in one's undefended openness, without having to promote or defend any position. This is the greatest protection. Can't be hurt. It's impossible because there's no fixed place that you're holding on to that could be damaged. You're in the flow of the moment. With teachers, particularly when it goes I would in the way it's set out, like in the Dharma, when it goes beyond the Mahayana to the Vajrayana, and we start talking about a teacher as our guru, for instance, it gets both more dangerous and more fertile. More dangerous because we can put the second witness first. More fertile because we can put the second witness first. And the key, this is going beyond the Mahayana here, and the key is the meeting of minds, where there is no longer two minds, meaning the teacher's mind is neither there either. But this is a very delicate point. And this slogan, I think, helps develop the self-trust in order, should we ever be graced with such a relationship, to be able to relax. That would be the key in the openness, the empty openness. And so particularly if we know that we have a propensity to be carried away, to fall into somebody else's orbit, then we pay attention to that. And then so we can decide. And this also, of the two witnesses, respect the first, also only comes after like a lot of preparation. It comes like kind of deep into these slogans. So we've already become really suspicious of ourselves. We've already worked with the trickiness and the sneakiness of ego. So then we say of the two witnesses, it's not the ego witness, it's this other thing I can't quite put my finger on inside. We give it words like truth sense or inner compass or wee small voice. But we know we're close to it when we're at peace. Inside, whatever might be happening outside, but we're aligned. Not traveling somewhere in our mind, not following thought forms. Following thought forms will not get us to this first witness as I'm thinking about it right now, this inner guidance. There's no way a thought, because a thought is in a concept bubble and it can't, and it needs to open in order to gain access to our, we could say, intuition or felt sense, non-conceptual, non-objective. As Rumi said, it's an intelligence that's fluid, like a spring overflowing its spring box, like a freshness in the center of the chest. That's the first witness. So we want to, first of all, get in touch with it, and then more and more test it. Can it be trusted? We have to test it. And that's where the Lojong is very powerful, because it invites challenge, it invites tests. Challenge me. This is like this Greek author, Nikos Kazantzakis, wrote Zorba the Greek and other novels. At the end of one of his novels, he's been sort of wrestling with he's the whole catastrophe guy, right? Been wrestling with things, and he says, somewhere in the novel, God, bend me, but don't break me. At the end of the novel, he says, God, bend me. I don't care if I break. At that moment, He's at the beginning of the Lojong. Or he's in the Lojong. Oh, I'm sorry, Molly. I'm going to go over again. Okay, Molly. Sorry about that. Unmute yourself.
Okay, I got it. I just wanted to say thank you for I really appreciate the honesty about enlightenment and awakening. Just the way you include that it's not easy and it's not comfortable. I just really appreciate that message. That's something that I have felt quite a bit. So I appreciate you just coming out and saying it directly.
You bet. Yeah, I'm using the word Dharma person. Trungpa used the word spiritual warrior, just to respect the degree of difficulty of living from the inside out and not in conformity to who we should or should not be. So I think we're going to leave it there. This is the end of our overview of the Lojong. You know, because you get it, there's a lot going on in here. We could spend a long time on each of these slogans. Really, they deserve it. I myself, I will say, I've benefited enormously from spending time with them. So I certainly recommend them going forward. And so we've kind of already done the meta, but let's dedicate the merit that we've generated here tonight by listening, reflecting, and meditating on the heart of the Dharma by virtue of our practice. May we attain clear light wisdom, and may our conflicting emotions be dispelled. May all beings be happy and have the causes of happiness. May we be free of suffering and its causes. May we never be parted from happiness, free from sorrow. May all beings be free of attachment, aversion, and indifference, and remain in great equanimity, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and real compassion.